I've been thinking this week about the fact that in our language we have some kind of unusual phrases or old sayings that we say to each other. And we just say them because we're familiar with them and we've heard them maybe growing up, and so we adopt them and say them. And I'm talking about phrases that really, when you think about it, don't make a lot of sense, like kill two birds with one stone. Really? You really want to do that? Like, how did that come about? How did that phrase come into existence? Did somebody sometime long ago kill two birds with one stone and kind of, adopted that? The phrase I've really been thinking about this week is this idea of saving for a rainy day. Hope you've been saving. Save for a rainy day. So I was curious about it, so I did thorough research. I Googled it. And Google knows all, right? So it said that during World War II, when they were selling war bonds, people in the country were encouraged to save. And it was the idea that when life is happy and life is good and you have all that you need, it's like a sunny day. Life is bright and good. And when life is not so good, it's like a rainy day and you're sad and kind of down. And so the idea of buying the bonds and saving was to be saving for a time in your life when maybe you'd be unemployed or there'd be a hardship that would result in you not having the finances or resources that you need. Saving for a rainy day. And that's an expression that actually John Wesley would have been pleased to affirm. John Wesley being the founder of our denomination, really. He's credited with being the founder. He started the Wesleyan movement back in the 18th century, a holiness movement. And John Wesley had 3 rules for managing your money. And I launched into this series last week, just 3 parts, last week, today, and next week. And I like to do a Methodist series of messages once a year at least, because I think it's important for us to remain in touch with our Methodist heritage, because it's a great heritage. It really is. And so I've been looking at these Wesleyan rules for managing money. And the first rule that we looked at last week was, anybody remember that was here? Earn all you can. And we thought, wow, that sounds like a non-Christian message. But we talked about how Wesley interpreted that to mean earn what you can in an honest way so that you can be blessed and be a blessing to others. So earn all you can. His second rule was to save all you can. That's what I want to look at today. And then next week we'll conclude with his third rule, which was give all you can. So there's an insert in your bulletin. It's a white half sheet. If you want to look at that as we go along, you can do that as sort of a guide. When Wesley said save all you can, he wasn't talking about hoarding. I want to make that clear. He wasn't talking about trying to hold on to everything that you have, everything that's been given to you, so that you'll just have more and more and more. He was talking about being responsible with your resources. He's talking about a Christian discipline of saving, being a good steward, a good trustee of what God's given you, so that it may be down the line that you could bless someone else or you could further God's kingdom because you are positioned to do so, having been a disciplined person. So I like to think there being 3 steps to doing this, 3 steps to fulfilling Wesley's second rule. And the first step is to just have a plan. To be able to save well, to save all you can, you need to have some kind of a plan for saving, because it's not just going to happen. If you just sit back and spend everything that you get, you won't have anything saved. And it seems that the get-rich-quick schemes never seem to work. They're tempting. I'm reminded of a guy I used to work with many years ago before I went into the ministry. He bought a ton of lottery tickets all the time. As soon as he got his paycheck, he spent almost his whole paycheck on lottery tickets, because by the end of the week, he was coming to us to bum a few dollars because he didn't have any money left. And he would take these lottery tickets and he would sit at a table at lunchtime on our break and he would lay them all out. And it was like he was playing cards. There were so many of them. And he was looking to see, what he had, what numbers, which one might be a winner. And, over the years, he'd win $25 here or $100 there. But I always thought to myself, Harvey, if you just held on to the money and put some of it away instead of buying lottery tickets, that was his scheme. for getting enough money in life. He was going to buy a ton of lottery tickets, and eventually, somehow, some way, he was going to win. Well, it never really panned out. And actually, Scripture has something to say about that in Proverbs chapter 13:11. It says, "Dishonest money dwindles away, but he who gathers money little by little makes it grow." If you know anything about investing or saving, you know that time is one of your best friends. The sooner you start, over time, there's that compound interest. Your money can grow and grow, but you need to have a plan to do that. And one of the plans that believers often use is the 10-10-80 plan. And what that 10-10-80 refers to is percentages of your income. And the 10-10-80 plan says the first thing you do is take 10% of your income and set it aside for the Lord's work. The next 10% you save for the rainy day. And then the 80% is what you live off of with joy and gratitude because God has provided it. Now, I know that 10% probably sounds like a lot for some people. You may already be sitting there calculating what you make in 10%, what that would look like, and you're thinking, oh my goodness. And the commitment to tithe is a serious one, and it's biblically based. The Old Testament gives us the model, it's affirmed in the New Testament, but it's not something, at least in my experience with church folks, that you can do overnight to wake up one morning and say, I think I'm going to start tithing. Some people are able, but usually you have to work up to that. In other words, the first step is to know what percentage you're giving now, and then maybe set a goal of reaching that 10% a year from now, 3 years from now, and keep increasing it till you move toward that biblical model of tithing, which is that 10%. And the next 10% is the saving. Now, the best way to save money, I think, and a lot of folks with financial knowledge will say, best way to save, if you can, is to have money directly taken out of whatever kind of check you get. If it's your paycheck, and if you can have that drafted into some kind of account, you won't even feel it. It's easier than getting the money and then turning around having to let it go and give it to some mutual fund or stock or savings account, whatever you might have. To have it taken out, you don't even feel it, you don't even know it, but when you get your statement, you see that money growing and you realize that you're saving for a rainy day and that money is growing. 10, 10, 80, and then the 80% again is what you would live off of. It's a plan. It's a way of organizing your resources around a Christian discipline. The second step is to be honest with yourself and face the facts of your financial situation. This means doing a ruthless inventory of your earning and spending. You don't have to have a PhD to know that if you're spending more than you're taking in, you're going to have a problem. And the problem's called debt, and it can be an ever-increasing problem if the pattern continues. So you need to take a real hard, honest look at what your financial situation is if you want to be able to save all you can, and look at what you're spending and look at what you're saving. You may have to make some changes in your lifestyle to be a saver. You may have to do plastic surgery. If I asked how many of you have done plastic surgery, cut up your credit cards, I bet I won't ask you because I don't want you to be embarrassed. But just by your smiles and gestures and elbows to your neighbor, tell me that many of you have done that. You had to cut up your credit cards at some point in your life. Because it's so easy to use credit cards, right? You're not really spending money. It's just a plastic card. And you give it to them, and they let you have what you want. And then the bill comes in. Now, credit cards, and I'm not standing here, condemning credit cards, because I know a lot of people who use them to their advantage. If you can discipline yourself with credit cards, you know how you get points, and you can use those points for travel, or you can get cash. We have a credit card that we use that actually, it's 2% on every purchase, and it goes right into an account that's growing. And I don't even feel it. I mean, I'm getting paid for spending. Now, that's great if you have that discipline that you're not just going to keep using the credit card to the point that you're in debt. So there are advantages, but you have to know yourself, and you have to have that discipline in order to use the cards to your advantage. But that's maybe one thing you need to do is what we call plastic surgery. You may have to change your shopping habits. For some people, shopping is entertainment. You don't probably say, let's go spend money. You say, let's go shopping. That sounds fun. That sounds like an adventure. It's entertainment. Let's go shopping. Let's go spend money. Well, that sounds different. But if you're shopping, you probably are spending money. And if you don't have money to spend, that's probably not a good thing. So maybe you need to recognize that. Take that inventory and take a hard look at your finances and say, you know what, I need to find other ways of being entertained than going shopping. And you know, some people shop because they're sad. Maybe it's a rainy day. Let's go shopping. I always feel better when I buy something until the bill comes. Some people get addicted to spending money in terms of shopping, and that's something, again, that needs to be looked at as part of that inventory. You might even be able to train yourself to see saving money as a celebration. Instead of feeling better because you went and bought stuff, realize that you're putting some money away, and when you get that statement, you feel good. You say, look how much money we were able to save. Look at the interest. Instead of paying interest, somebody's paying me interest because I'm saving some money. And that can be a mental flip as far as how you look at spending and managing your money. And the third step would be to begin with the end in mind. Stephen Covey wrote that famous book years ago about the 7 habits of highly effective people. And one of the things he said was always begin something with the end in mind. Where do you want to end up? And this is a truth in life. Some of you are recently married, some of you have been married for a little while, some of you have been married a long time, but whatever stage you're at, if you set a goal, like I want to be married, I want to reach our 50th. We have some people that have reached it and have gone beyond, right? I want to reach my 50th. I want to reach my 60th. Then what do you need to do now in order to get there? You're just graduating from high school and you want to become a doctor. That's the end goal. What do you need to do now in order to get there? Well, first step would be to go to college and start that educational journey. Do you want your kids to still come and see you when you're old and gray, and your grandchildren? So what kind of parent do you want to be now? If you want to be married for 50 years, what kind of a husband or wife do you need to start being today? What kind of encouragement do you need to offer regularly? It's this idea of beginning with the end in mind. So if you're thinking about the end, or the end of a goal that you want to reach, you want to buy a new car, you want to be able to retire, then what do you need to do now in order to reach that goal? What kind of saving do you need to engage in now in order to reach that goal in terms of your resources? Now again, Wesley is urging us to do this, not to pile up stuff for ourselves. In fact, he refers to a parable that brings all of this to light. And I want to read it for you. It's in Luke's Gospel. It's chapter 12. It's the parable of the rich fool. And Jesus talks about this farmer who does real well, but he's condemned in the parable because of the way he managed the things that he had. And listen as I read the parable, how many times words I, my, and mine are used. He told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I will do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God. Rich toward God. That's a whole different kind of rich. Nowhere in the parable does the man say, gosh, I've got all this stuff. My neighbor didn't have as good a crop this year. Maybe I can share some of that overflow with him. There's no sense of generosity. It's all I, me, and mine. And so Jesus tells this parable as a way of saying, if you're just piling up stuff for yourself, that's not the goal, and it's not going to go well. Because somebody else is going to get all your stuff one day. Do you know who that's going to be? You're going to leave it behind because you can't take it with you. If you save all you can and you're faithful with your resources, then God can use you to grow the kingdom of God. I want to close by telling you the story of Osceola McCarty. Can you say that name? Osceola McCarty. Very good. You don't know who she is, right? Nobody's heard of Osceola McCarty. She was born in 1908. She was a young African-American girl who in 6th grade had to quit school because her aunt was sick and she had to work to help the family. So she ironed people's clothes. She ironed and did laundry for a lot of the white families that were near her. She never married. She did laundry for 74 years. Every Sunday she was in her Baptist church praising the Lord, serving God. And no one was more surprised than the University of Southern Mississippi when she left them $150,000 for a scholarship. A school that she would have never been entitled to attend in her day because of segregation. She left them $150,000 saying, I'm too old to get an education, but they can. I can't do everything, but I can do something to help somebody. And what I can do, I will do. I wish I could do more. When asked how she accumulated that amount of money, Osceola McCarty replied, it wasn't hard. I didn't buy things I didn't need, and the Lord helped me, and he'll help you too. She lived out that principle in Proverbs 13:11. Dishonest money dwindles away, but he who gathers money little by little makes it grow. May Wesley's rules and the teachings of the Holy Scripture guide us as we manage the resources that God has given us. Lord, thank you for what you have given us. Sometimes we complain